Hello, Sacred Souls, and welcome to another episode of the Sacred Soul podcast. Today, we're interviewing Terri Conroy. She is a herbalist trained in the wise woman tradition. She grows and forages for medicinal plants, runs classes and courses in herbal medicine, and she also has a YouTube channel. So we are so excited to talk to Terri today. She's one of our favourite YouTubers, and we just wanted to say welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here and meet you and see you face to face and have a chat.
Definitely.
And just to let everybody know, the YouTube channel is Danu Irish Herb Garden, and it is a wonderful YouTube channel. We've been watching it all through the lockdowns and before, and it is just such full of knowledge and wisdom, and we love the little intro with the guitar and the dogs running around.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really natural and really carefree kind of approach to what should really be something that's very natural for all of us to kind of get involved with. So tell us a little bit about what brought you into herbalism, Terri, and how you kind of managed to get this beautiful herb garden up and running.
Well, it's been a lifelong journey in a way. I think it's because I grew up in England. My family's Irish and they went to England, and I grew up in a very industrial town. We didn't have a garden. So when we came on holiday to the west of Ireland, to Connemara, it was like going to heaven, because we could just run wild across fields, and there were animals and there were plants, and there was the seaside because we're on the coast. So we had holidays that ticked every box. And we've even got a ruined castle just across the way here. So as a 7-year-old, getting up on one of our first holiday mornings, I couldn't believe I just read The Castle of Adventure, and there was a castle. So we were having countryside holidays and seaside holidays all at the same time, and the freedom was just incredible. And it just gave me an absolute love of nature and the outdoors. And then growing up in the industrial town and coming back, it just kept feeding me, and it made my heart ache when I wasn't here. And eventually the whole family has come back to Ireland, and I have my own house here now on the family land. And it's just allowed me to really reconnect to Mother Earth and to also to like an ancestral heritage, because the people living here on the west coast of Ireland would have been very self-sufficient, small farmers and fishermen, and growing their own vegetables. And you know, back in the day when you had to know what plants to use to heal yourself, it's all come together for me. So I'm just living my perfect soul path life, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know, that's one of the main things that we kind of focus on our podcast as well, is people living in their soul's purpose. And it sounds like you really are living in accordance to that and intrinsically following your kind of intuitive pathway. I mean, looking through your videos and watching all of your kind of adventures around the Irish herb garden, it seems like it's really kind of grown with you in the respect of it was probably quite empty when you first got there. And for most of us that are kind of, you know, things, how would you kind of maybe explain to people that are, you know, beginners, of how to start off and what to do to create their own little place of heaven like you've created?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I think it's nothing really to do with the size of your garden or where you live. You can feel that connection and an attunement with a window box. So if anybody wanted to start off, I would suggest, first of all, go into your supermarket. And when you get to the vegetable section, you see all these herbs for sale. They're all culinary herbs. So you'll get basil, sage, rosemary, thyme, coriander. They would be the main ones that we see here. And take them home and taste them. And make a cup of tea with them. Chop them up finely, make a cup of tea. And just sit and drink it. How does it make you feel inside, physically and emotionally? How does it taste? Is it warming, cooling? That will help you to get to know those individual herbs. And these herbs, you might call them, one of my teachers used to say they were the spaghetti herbs, because they're antiviral, because you use them in your pasta dishes. but they're all medicinal as well. You know, they're digestive aids and they're antiviral, so you can take them if you feel a cold coming on. Sage, for example, is very beneficial to women going through the menopause. Thyme is very beneficial to people coming down with colds and flus. So you could just start off with your kitchen windowsill. You don't actually need to go out and plant. And then once you've kind of experienced the herbs on that level, start growing them yourself instead of getting them in the supermarket, because those poor little herbs in the supermarket, they die off immediately if you don't use them. So they're not the healthiest. So to grow your own herbs, start with the culinary herbs, because you're more likely to use them on a daily basis and you're more likely to enjoy the benefits of them. And then just take it from there, see where it leads you. But if you don't have, like, you know, I'm aware that lots of people live in towns and cities. They might be in high-rise flats or apartments or whatever. So go out into your nearby countryside and forage. All the weeds, all the plants that we've been told are weeds are also very potent medicinally as well. So just
because I know we're this season now, aren't we? So I think cleavers start to grow again around this time, don't they?
Yes.
Really is it for the immune system and things like that, cleavers?
It is in an indirect way. If you look at cleavers, they're like a little bottle brush. So they've got all these little leaves that go around the stem, and they're a little bit, they've got hairs on, so they pull out dirt and toxins when they go into your lymph system. They're like a bottle brush into the lymph system. So in that way, you get a spring clean and you get flushed out and you get all those toxins pulled out of you. And then you feel more energetic. So you get a spring in your step and you feel, you know, like you're coming back to life after the winter.
Yeah.
And after the sloth of the winter. So yeah, cleavers, the dandelions, plantain. You might find some wild garlic. We've got lots of three-cornered leek coming up everywhere at the moment, and wild garlic will be coming up. So, you know, I would recommend people buy a little plant ID book. Don't rely on apps on the phone, because sometimes they get it wrong. Whereas if you have a book, you can put it into your pocket. You can get little pocket books and bring it out with you when you go for a walk in the country. And then there are various rules of harvesting. You know, you don't take everything that you see. You just try to take 10% and know what you want it for. There's no point getting overexcited and thinking, look at all the cleavers or look at all the dandelions, and taking them all and then think, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Know what you're doing first and who you're doing something for.
Would you say as well, the best thing is learn by doing rather than relying on the books and things?
Yeah, well, obviously the books, if you get a book about herbal medicine, it's going to give you steps to follow in as to how to make. I mean, a cup of tea, you're just chopping up the plant material as finely as tea leaves.
Yeah.
But if you want to go and make other medicines, yeah, get a book that will guide you, or do a course. And
that's the thing.
Definitely.
From your videos that you've learned a lot of it along the way, as well as obviously doing courses and reading, but it feels like a lot of your knowledge comes like from within. It comes from sort of inner knowing, more so like as if you're very in tune with the plant world, you know what I mean?
That comes with the practice. I say to my students, they'll suddenly discover that they know the name of a plant, or they'll suddenly realize how they can work with a plant. And it's because we carry all that knowledge in our genes, because we've been doing this for 120,000 years since we became Homo sapien rather than Homo erectus, when we made that transition and our brains expanded. So it's in our genes, and we share genes with the plants as well. So we have a symbiotic relationship with them already. And the more you do, like any practice, the better you become and the more knowledgeable you become. So anybody can do it. It's your, as Susan Weed says, this is your heritage, you know. And another phrase she uses, she's a famous herbalist in America. She says this is people's medicine. So you don't need somebody in a white coat to tell you what to do with your body and your health, because you know, our bodies will heal themselves if we give them the time and space, because we have homeostasis. We just need to get back into balance. And the plants work to help nudge us back into balance. So
Yeah.
I often think of modern allopathic medicine as something like the Green Berets. They go in, bang, bang, they do the job, and then you have all the damage to repair afterwards. Whereas the herbal medicine goes in, it's nourishing, it's soothing, and it just gently nudges you back to a state of homeostasis. So it's healing you, it's working with your own healing powers.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you were saying just a moment ago about you know, herbs being gentle and kind of working in sync with your body, because when we first moved into our house, you know, I've been quite poly for a while with various different things, and just walking barefoot around the garden, and things started to spring up in the garden on an almost on an intuitive level, as if Earth Gaia knew what we needed, what was needed for our health and for our well-being, and we hadn't planted anything. It just started appearing, and it's that connect. You know, there's a lot about grounding and things, isn't there? And I think that it's so important that we are barefoot on the ground, so that we're kind of intuitively, almost symbiotically connecting as this kind of partnership. You know, I think we talk a lot about spiritual stuff, don't we, in general, when we're kind of talking about kind of evolving, but intrinsically we are part of the land as well. We're both, aren't we? So it's so important to do both of those things, and be able to ground and connect to nature as well as connecting to our, you know, higher consciousness.
Yeah, well, we are nature. We've just been, since Descartes, I think, in the 17th century, and various philosophers since then, they've built a philosophy around the fact that we are a machine, and that we're outside of nature looking in, and nature is something to exploit. And that's absolute rubbish. We are nature, we're part of it. So it's not surprising that when you walk barefoot in your garden, that plants will spring up, because nature provides. You know, we've seen movies where people have been dropped into a wilderness and they're starving to death. It's because they've lost the skills. We've all lost those skills, but actually we could go out there naked today and survive if we knew.
And it is, like you say, very much a stolen wisdom. It's like, I believe that a lot of these wisdoms that we should have inherited through our generations have kind of been stolen through things like the witchcraft era and things like that, where wise women that were kind of our Celtic shamans, if you like, of this area of the West, you know, were kind of cold off, and there's not that, you know, connection. So it's so important to have women like yourselves, and obviously me and Beth are learning about this as well. It's so important to have these, you know, guides and, you know, people to help, you know, bring that wisdom back into civilization and into the human race. You know, it's so important that we have that knowledge, isn't it?
I think
Definitely. I mean, we've only had allopathic medicine as we know it. We've only had it since the turn of the 20th century, really. And I won't go into all that because it's very political, but it's true that what we call alternative medicine nowadays was just medicine. And the alternative is what we now call modern medicine, because it's bullied everything out of the way.
And there is a place, isn't there, as we were talking about before we came on, wasn't we, about, you know, blood pressure, because I've had a few issues with my blood pressure, and I've been trying to treat some of it like herbally, but sometimes, you know, you do need the intervention of allopathic medication, and then you can support it, like you're saying, in the background with the herbal medication, and eventually maybe transition back to the herbal remedies again.
Yes, yeah.
So what, sorry Terri, you was cutting out then, it's a bit of interference. Go on, what was you saying?
Okay.
I was going to say I didn't hear what you had said.
Oh, sorry, I was saying
my microphone went into mute then. I don't know what went on.
Yeah, having a few technical difficulties this morning, guys, so you're gonna have to bear with us. It's taken us about half an hour to get online.
Yeah. I was going to say, Terry, that obviously what you do is very important because you're providing this knowledge for free online on a platform that is quite large, and you have quite a large following as well. So I think you've probably had a much bigger impact than you probably think. The amount of people that have taken on board what you've said and started their herbal journey and learning just to, you know, just the little things like you said, with starting with the teas and things like that, making up some tinctures and oils and stuff. That's what we've been doing as well. Recently, in the last couple of months, we've been over winter trying out new things. We made a fire cider, and we made a Four Thieves vinegar and things like that. And that's all stuff that we wouldn't have known about had we have not seen your videos. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about, because I know you run the Hawthorne Academy of Healing Herbs, and that's your actual courses that you offer. So how does that differ from the information that you share on your channel? Because I'm assuming it's much more in depth, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, all I'm sharing on the channel really are a few recipes. And I really, for me, I don't like it when people lead you to the end, and then instead of giving you the end, they say, oh, now, you know, sign up for this and that. I think I don't own herbal medicine, and I don't own the recipes. I mean, fire cider, for example, Rosemary Gladstar had to go to court to prove that that was the people's medicine and it didn't belong to any one company. Unfortunately, she won the case. So these remedies, they're in the ether, they're in our memories, and I just want to remind people to, you know, to get on with them and use them themselves. If people want to learn more about herbal medicine, they're very welcome to come and do my courses, because, you know, we look at the body, we look at the body systems, we look at how, because one of the things that is very annoying is that people will contact me and say, oh, I've got X problem, which herb will help? And that's the way the allopathic medicine works. With herbal medicine, every herb will have many actions. So for example, if we look at sage works in, it does many things, it has many actions. So it will help you with a sore throat, so it will fight against the infection in your throat, so that it's helping your immune system. It's good for respiratory problems, but it's also very beneficial to women who are having hot flushes, because it will have a direct impact on the hypothalamus, which regulates our body temperature, and it's affecting our hormones. So you cannot say, oh yeah, take this for that and take that for the other. Like feverfew, for example, everybody now knows that feverfew is a migraine herb, but it's actually, think of its name, it's feverfew. It relieves fever, so it's a diaphoretic. It has an action of helping you to sweat out infection and relieve fever, to bring down the temperature. So so that's the sort of thing you would learn in depth on the course, that herbs have actions. Some you can take long term as a nourishing herb, such as nettles. You could take nettles forever, it's not going to do you any harm. But other herbs, you only want to take them while you're doing that nudge back to homeostasis, and you wouldn't take them long term. And we look at the history of medicine, we look at how it's evolved over the centuries and the millennia, and we look at ways to consult with a person. So there's lots of things in the herbal courses that it wouldn't be on the YouTube channel.
And you do shamanic journeying as well, don't you, in your Wise Woman course?
Yeah, I include that in the herbal medicine course too, because I think, for me anyway, once you start growing plants and working with them, you just begin to feel gratitude. And then whenever you're outside, your senses are listening to the birds, you're aware of the worms in the soil, you're seeing different things coming up. You learn why those weeds come up and what they do. They all have a lot of beneficial actions in your garden. So for example, creeping buttercup, which I used to detest, and then I realized the way it works, it's covering bare earth to keep it in place. So it's actually a friend rather than a foe. So it's stopping soil erosion. And then you begin to sense that there's more there than just you. So what I try to encourage my students to do is to set an intention and to go out and to find a plant ally. and that means they'll just wait to hear a plant call to them, or make overtures to them. And working through the heart space, they find out if this plant is actually trying to communicate with them. And then they sit and breathe with the plant. And it just, because they're sentient beings just like us, so there's no reason why we can't develop communication. So that would be a small part of the herbal medicine course. But the other course, the Wise Woman training, there's a lot of shamanic journeying involved in that one. Yeah,
because I know you talk a lot about the spirit of the plants when you're on your YouTube channel as well, and you know, when you're foraging, and you're teaching people a lot of that relationship that we have with the plant kingdom as well. It's not just about, you know, grabbing what you can out of it, and you know, you also talk a lot about ceremony and certain Celtic celebrations. Is that a part of some of your courses as well, or is that a separate course?
well, that's the Wise Woman training. It is following the Celtic Wheel of the Year. And, you know, since time immemorial, human beings have had ceremony. And when you create a little ceremony, for example, if you have a friend round for coffee, you're creating a ceremony because you're making the coffee, you're sitting down together, you're having a chat, you're sharing your milk and sugar or whatever. Obviously, in Japan, the tea ceremony is hugely important. And even if you make yourself a cup of tea, it's a little ritual, because you make your tea, you're smelling it, you're savoring it, you're relaxing with it. And I think whenever you make a little ceremony or ritual, it, instead of just drinking it as oh, it's my medicine, I better drink it. If you create that little ceremony or ritual, you are healing on other levels as well. It's not just a physical thing.
Yeah, recently actually I've started having ceremonial cacao, and I found that that's been, having that as a mindful practice as well as the benefits of the cacao has really helped me every morning. That's like my little time to myself. And instead of just, you know, flicking the kettle on, making the tea and just, you know, drinking it in between looking after kids and things, it's the mindful motion of chopping up the cacao, melting it in the saucepan, sitting there making time to drink it, and making it, like you say, into a ceremony, because it really does help you to connect with your body as well as whatever that you're taking.
Perfect. Yeah, and that being mindful, and you could set an intention: this cacao is going to open my heart and help me be a loving person throughout the day. You can do the same with our own indigenous hawthorn. It's also, and rose, you know. So as the summer progresses, you may not want something as thick and as heavy as a cacao drink. So a lovely hawthorn blossom tea or rose petal tea is going to have the same effect on the heart. And yeah, it's just, you can create so many beautiful things with the plants. You know, you can, you know, people are using wreaths on their doors more. It used to just be a Christmas wreath, but now you see them on people's doors, and they're changing as the season goes on, incorporating different plants. So if you look into the metaphysical qualities of those plants, you know, some are for protection, some are for abundance, some are for love, some are for protection or health. You know, it's when you find those things out, you can use the plants even more. And I don't want to say the word use them, I mean incorporate them into your life. Start working with them rather than using them.
Yeah, because a lot of people would take on board the fact that, you know, you've got herbal medicine, but then you've also got it in the sense of with the metaphysical properties. So maybe like incorporating it into like Wicca or paganism, or, you know, if you are religious in that way. I personally use a lot of herbs in like my witchcraft practice as well, because of their benefits. Like it makes you think a little bit deeper, and when you're making things, when you're cooking, putting spices in and like mixing love and sigils into your food and things like that, I just think that's a whole nother layer to herb as well. That's good to explore.
It's lovely.
I think a lot of people use like you say, use the properties and the qualities of plants in different ways, and I think you have to, you know, really kind of delve into your own intrinsic spirit and what feels right and resonates with you and how you use them, but obviously being respectful of the plant spirit also. And I, you know, for me, I've worked a lot with shamanism and healing in that way, but I also do some kind of ceremonial stuff when I work with plants. But I also feel a huge connection to the plant kingdom, and I always have done. And I like to have plants and fruit trees and things always like close by, because I just feel that, you know, they really are a healing aid, aren't they? And I'm studying Ayurveda at the moment as well, so it's very much looking into the kind of ancient wisdom behind, you know, healing yourself through nutrition and through the kingdom. And it's just it's amazing, isn't it? It's like a whole thread of wisdom that we've not been shown in schools, and I think it's so sad that perhaps we should these teachings. People should be coming in to teach children about connecting to nature and what the plants are about and how they help to heal, not just physically, but also medicinally as well. So what do you think about that? Can you see that connection happening maybe with allopathic and homeopathic medicines and herbalism coming together? Because I think that's what maybe is going to happen in the future.
Yeah. Oh, well, I certainly think there's room for everything to give people choice. At the moment, everything is being funneled in one direction and there's a lot of threat there, but you can still decide for yourself that you want to use herbs or homeopathy. I think, we should teach our children. Plants are not just there for medicine or for metaphysical. They're there for literally our lives, because they provide clothing, shelter, food, medicine, tools. Practically, you can't survive on the planet without plants. And they also provide us with the air that we breathe. So I definitely think that should be taught in schools. And I think, unfortunately, from my experience as an alternative practitioner, because I'm a kinesiologist as well, that all the various modalities in that field of complementary or alternative modalities, they're all keen to work with the allopathic side of things. But I don't think, apart from a few individuals, it's been reciprocated. So I don't know if that will ever come to be, because I don't know. I think it's like I said, it's people's medicine. People have to decide, do they want to be responsible? Because we've been trained to just hand over our own sovereignty and authority to other people. Maybe where the times we're living in now, there's so much flux and turmoil, perhaps people will begin to think again about their own power. You know, we need to take back our power. And one way to do it is to be self-reliant.
I think there's a lot of shift going on in the sort of newer generation on the internet, where it's moving away from using chemicals, moving away from, unnatural products and things. There's a huge movement at the moment with becoming self-sufficient, self-reliant, people canning, growing their own food, raising their own animals and things like that as well. And I think from where I'm coming from on that angle, starting off small, a lot of people listening to this would probably want to move away from using a lot of the things that they do every day that they know are damaging to their body. For example, washing detergents and things like that they're using every day, or shower gels and shampoos that have got hormone disruptors in and different things. And I think that's another really amazing thing about your channel, is your recipes that you have for things like that, like laundry detergents, soaps, making shampoos and things like that. People wouldn't realize that there's stuff in their cupboards that they can actually use instead of going to the shop and buying it. And I think becoming self-reliant like that is it's rewarding. We've started making bits, haven't we, Mum? And it feels like, when you wash your clothes for something, you've put your own love and attention into and thought about what you're using, even down to the smell when you're washing it, and then your clothes are dry and they feel soft and they feel like they would if you use something out of a shop. You think, oh wow, I can do this myself.
It's that sense of empowering. It's like, I remember when I was very young, and I just got my own house, and I bought my own house and I was wallpapering, and then you stand back, and I did it myself. I didn't get a decorator to come in. So it's every single thing like that. It's like when you even first cook a meal as a young adult and you think, look at me, I've cooked a meal for myself. But with the plant, you cannot take a herbal medicine if you're eating junk food and using those products, because it's just defeating the purpose, really. It's going to have a minimal effect. It's not going to be as effective as it could be if your environment was clean. And I don't mean clean with shop products, I mean clean of shop products, you know, that all those chemicals are gone. So we have a reed, our grey water goes into a reed bank. It goes through gravel and into a reed bank. And so all my homemade products are absolutely fine. They don't do any damage. But I got a soap for Christmas and I didn't realize it had all the sulfates in. And for the first time in, I don't know, 15 years or more, the plug hole was covered in this foamy, slimy stuff, which was from the lauryl sulfates in the soap. So it's the environment outside as well as the internal environment of your home. Yeah, but you know, people have to learn these things at their own pace, because once upon a time I didn't know that. I trusted that if it was on the shelf in a shop, it must be okay, and then realize how the world works. So
I think, and that is when there's a lot going on in the internet and on social media moment about kind of woke people and I think that's really where, you know, this movement is kind of trying to educate people more, so is, you know, understanding that there's a lot of products that are in these things we're using every day that are very damaging to our health, actually. And you, like you say, we blindly trust, don't we, that our food that we're getting from the supermarket and our products that we're using on our skin and our hair and cleaning products, that they're safe for human use. But actually, when you actually start reading up and doing your own research, you realize that there's some extremely carcinogenic materials in there, hormone disruptors, as Beth said. There are some, you know, terrible side effects from some of these medications on the skin and dermatological, you know, issues. When you start looking into it more, you realise how damaging that it is, even to your, you know, to your breathing as well. Like when you're using bleaches and things, you're inhaling those kind of aromatic scents and molecules into the body. And I think it's so important to educate yourself on that, isn't it? Because
if you think about your household products and air fresheners and things, they've all got parfum, which parfum is one ingredient on the list on your bottle or your container, but parfum could be up to 50,000 different chemicals. And, you know, they know that they cause respiratory illness, but also I think they can create ADHD in children as well, just from inhaling these smells that are supposed to be like natural smells, but of course they're completely synthetic. So you're far better to get an essential oil and use that around your house, or burn it in an oil burner or a diffuser and scent your home that way, than using these horrible.
Yeah, because I think as well with, like, on that front, it was really eye-opening for me when I started breastfeeding my baby, because that was the turning point of what am I putting on my skin that he could be ingesting. And I think all of this comes from a place of self-love. I think people need to love themselves enough to realize this is what you're putting in your body and this is what it's doing to you. Because I used to be a fake tan addict. I used to wear a fake tan all the time. I would fake tan 3 times a week, 4 times a week. When I first started breastfeeding, I was like, I want to actually know what's in this, because I don't want his face being too close and breathing it in or ingesting it. And it's got chemicals in that shouldn't be anywhere near mucous membranes, because it can be extremely damaging to the tissues and can actually be toxic. And that was the first point of, I was like, wow, hang on, how many other things have I got in this cabinet that I shouldn't be using? And it didn't help that he has loads of allergies anyway, but having my youngest baby has changed my whole life in regard to that, because you are then looking after someone else and not just your own body. It's about what you're putting into them. And I think a lot of people need to, you know, like you said, if you're eating unhealthy food and, you know, putting these things on your body that are toxic, and then you're having herbal medicine, it's not going to put you into balance at all. You're only getting one of those pillars, you know. It needs to be a whole, you know, all-encompassing lifestyle change. It's not just a trend of what a lot of people are putting out online, which I think is great that it is being talked about and there's a big movement. But I think, you know, it's important for people like you that are educated on the subject to keep doing what you're doing, because, you know, that's what changes people's lives essentially, is having that knowledge.
Yeah, it is. And there's two things I'd like to say. That first of all, one little step. You know, people don't have to go and smash everything in the cupboards and get rid of it. Just do one little bit till you feel comfortable. Do another little bit. Do another little bit. And the other thing I was going to say was, yes, you do things for your children because you love them and you want them to be as protected and as safe as possible. And for me, doing those things to make everything as wholesome as possible for your children means that you then want to make sure that where your plants are growing is a wholesome place. So then you begin to really be conscious of how you can look after the earth. And then you're helping yourself, you're helping the earth, and it becomes a cycle. It's a circle of help, because we can't live without the earth and we can't live without the plants. And if we want to be healthy, they have to be healthy as well. So it's
that was something we struggled with when we was starting our grow last year, wasn't it? When we was growing our vegetables, Mum, was knowing what to put on the soil to help them to grow, but without obviously spraying anything on them or anything like that, because you want to keep them as like natural and organic as possible. Do you have anything like that you would recommend for that?
Well, I do a no dig, so I just I'll do lasagna beds. You know, I'll put down layers of cardboard and maybe some straw. We have, and probably where you are as well, you'll be able to get a hold of sheep's wool, because farmers cannot sell their wool anymore because we acrylic jumpers. You know, people are wearing clothes made of synthetic fabrics and things. This is what I'm doing in this week's video, actually talking about. And so get some sheep's wool. It's full of minerals. Put it down, use it as a mulch, or put it down just under your layer of compost. And it also, the snails and slugs, they can't travel over the fibers of the wool. So you find you have fewer snails and slugs and pests like that. And as I say, it's organic, it rots down into the soil. So it's feeding your soil. And you can make compost teas. That's going to help your crops to grow as well. So, you know, you could just use, you can be fancy, you can make comfrey tea, you can make nettle tea, or you can just throw all your weeds into a barrel and let them rot, because they're also full of organic material and minerals that you can just then use back on the land. And, you know, plant with intent and put your love into it, and use your whatever you've learned through your study of Wicca to put protection over. And I think it's more than just working with the plants. Work with the spirits of the land as well. Co-create. So instead of imposing your will, it's not that we go around saying, oh, please, can we grow a veg bed here? Say, I'm going to grow a veg bed here. Is that okay? Can I do something to offset it? You know, maybe put in a little pond to encourage biodiversity, maybe plant a fruit tree, and that offsets you disturbing the bit of land to put in your vegetable bed. So everything remains in harmony, and you are working with the land rather than imposing on it, and all those land spirits that are there. And there'll be energies there as well. In Ireland, you see, we've had such a history of colonialism. We've had evictions, we've had the starvation of the potato blight. All of those energies are there as well, and they need to be cleared. So sometimes just even smudging your land can be really helpful and beneficial.
That's really interesting. And also, Terri, I know you were speaking a little bit about water filtration a little while ago, but from your perspective, obviously there's so much going on about water at the moment. And I don't know that you know much about Veda Austin's work as well, where she talks a lot about consciousness, water consciousness, and kind of, you know, there's a real huge movement at the moment where people are becoming much more aware of their bodies being, you know, as like the macrocosm and the microcosm. It's very much the water is within us as well as in the cosmos and in the air and everything like that. Would you, obviously there's so many different bottled varieties, and I'm not expecting you to name ones that we should drink, but is there a specific water that is better for us? I mean, obviously I'm assuming spring water, but if you're not near a spring, for people to be able to hydrate properly and making sure that they're, nourishing their bodies and gardens even as well, what would you suggest? What is something that would be beneficial?
Well, I think in Ireland, we're the only country with fluoride in our water. And so fortunately for us, it actually is, we have like a rural water scheme. So we're not on a mains, it's completely separate. Our water comes from a lake and it goes through some kind of filter, but there isn't any fluoride, thank God. But we have a water filter in the house, which screens out everything. It's just, it's a stand on the counter one.
Are they expensive?
An English company called Osmio Water, and it was about €200, I think. So it's maybe, but it's there for life now. You just have to replace the filters in it, which for us, there's only 2 of us, so that might be every 6 to 8 months. And but if you can't do that, if you just let your water stand overnight, the chemicals evaporate out, or especially chlorine will evaporate out of the water, and then it's much safer to use. So, if you fill your kettle up the night before, the water will evaporate. And it's the same for watering your house plants. Leave the water to evaporate the chlorine before you feed the plants or water the plants. And even if you just pray over it and put, like Professor Emoto's work, which preceded Veda Austin, simply praying over water can improve, because they did experiments with the most polluted water imaginable, and the crystal shapes changed dramatically. So yeah, Veda Austin, work is incredible. So what I like to do as well, and I say to my students, talking about ritual again and ceremony, whenever you're using water in the house, say a little prayer of thanks, because that water has been here forever, for millions of years. It's got so much memory in it. We know that it holds memory, but it's also, we know now from Veda's work, it is conscious. So and also not just conscious, but can communicate, because her work is just going from one advance to another. So taking a shower, using water for your vegetable cooking, drinking the water, washing up, whatever you do, when you go to water the garden, just bless or pray over the water and ask it, do your best. I love her bit when she was talking about, when you look at H2O, you think it's 2 molecules of oxygen stuck on a hydrogen, and it's not. They're constantly breaking, and different oxygen molecules are going to the other hydrogen molecules, and it's just, so really wasn't exist.
It is fascinating. And the really interesting thing I read recently as well was that apparently stars in the sky, when they actually explode and the dust particles come down into the earth, and the water molecules come down into the earth, they're going into our rivers. And so when you think about it, we're drinking cosmic water. All the waters have come from different galaxies, from different timelines, and we're infusing that within our bodily systems. So we're connected very galactically as well, and water is that galactic connection that we have, as earth and plants are also connected in that way, but they're our earth connection, aren't they? So there's a real kind of flow with everything that kind of moves together, isn't it? It's so fascinating.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. You put it beautifully there as well, that the flow of the cosmic and the galactic and the earthly. Yeah, it's a beautiful universe if we can just remember that and appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what we tend to forget to do, isn't it? I think, like you were saying a minute ago, when we was talking about Veda and we were talking about, having intent, I think it's so important that, there's been so much being proved now, like with a lot of Joe Dispenza's work, Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, about the mind and how intention and our thought processes, and how they, they're integral to a lot of the outcomes that we kind of want to manifest. And I know there's been lots of kind of things about manifestation and things like that, but when you look behind what that is about, it really is just about putting positive intent and having positive thought processes that are creating your reality. And it's so important, isn't it? Because when you think about what Veda was doing with the water molecules, and freezing in the petri dish, she's actually infusing thought and intention in that, in the same way that how we work because I do sound therapy, you're setting an intention. The intention is integral to the work of the sound therapist. You're setting the intent before you start, exactly when you're doing ritual and ceremony. You know, all of this is so interconnected, isn't it?
Yeah, and the same when you're making medicine. And I'd just like to tell you something that my husband was watching a podcast, and the man hosting was interviewing a NASA rocket scientist, and she was talking about sacred geometry. And I only caught about 5 seconds, and this is what I caught of it when I was walking past. She was talking about, you have, you know, we've got the 2 hemispheres of the brain. So we know that we've got the logical side and the artistic, creative side. So she was saying when different energies come in and affect those parts of the brain, when they're coming through and you've got your third eye, it creates a geometric shape, which is a triangle. So you're kind of and this is about the art of manifestation. So when you're bringing together the 2 hemispheres of the brain and you're visualizing things with your third eye, you're creating this geometric shape, which is kind of triangulating everything, because it's a 3D triangle. And then that is sending off your intention to manifest something like that. I can send you the link if you want to put it up.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was so fascinating, because I don't know enough about sacred geometry, but it's out there in nature. It's everywhere we look. You know, it's the pattern of the galaxy itself. It's the pattern of the winds and the stars, and certain plants grow in certain geometric shapes. And the universe is created.
Very true. And interesting what you're saying about the triangle. When you look at the triangle shape in itself, and you look at some of Leonardo da Vinci's work, you can see that you know, the astrological man that has his arms holding out, the triangle is very much incorporated into those sharp systems of the body. And there was a really interesting podcast recently on a podcast called Next Level Soul.
That's the one I'm talking about.
And there was a man on the Richard E. Edward Grant, and he was talking about, he'd spent some time in the pyramids, and he was using kind of like, he was saying about how these sacred geometries kind of unlock the wisdom of the hieroglyphics and unlock the wisdom of the crystalline encryptions. And we're all encoded with these kind of symbolisms and geometric energy vibrations within our bodies. And it's so fascinating when you start to see how interconnected everything is. Even astrology, like, because he was saying about how, you know, astrology, the kind of language of astrology was all over the king's chamber. And interestingly, there's a lot of plant connections with astrology as well, isn't there? There's a lot of, you know, like dandelion being connected to the sun, and, you know, all of those kind of things. It's amazing when you start to see how everything is so connected.
I know, it's amazing. It's just, it's thrilling and exciting to be aware and to still be here and to be part of the universe where these things are just continuing on all the time.
Yeah, and even learning things where, you know, even yourself, Terri, and people like Bade Austin and Pam Gregory and you know, this Richard Edward Grant, although you've got all this wisdom and knowledge, you're still constantly learning, and it's like we're all like being children in the playground. We're all like still having that, you know, burst of childlike wonder and awe in all of these wonderful creations that are coming to light, that we're kind of almost finding out our true existence and where we come from, and we are really connected more galactically than anything else. And it's just such a fascinating subject to start, you know, exploring, isn't it? Learning about life and wisdom and truth.
I found out the other day, I was again listening to a podcast, but I didn't realize that just from starting out on that small step towards like self-improvement, that first like half an hour after you wake up, your brain is in an alpha state. So it's more connected to the universe, you're more open, your brain's slowly waking up. And people, it's just like common now to just roll over, grab your phone, start scrolling through. And that's when your brain is like unlocked to be able to, you know, put intention out, and it's so much more strong, like your vibration that you're giving off and everything else. And it was just basically saying that first, like, you know, half an hour after you wake up should be used to slowly wake yourself up, do some journaling, do some like intention setting, goal setting, things like that. Like you said with manifestation, that's apparently the best time to do it, because, you know, your third eye is more open, where you're, you know, still in that kind of dream state. and as you're just waking up.
Download stuff too. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah. So
Are there any
Love it.
to meditation? Like, what would you suggest? Like, if someone's really wanting to get into meditation a bit more deeply, if they're struggling a little bit, maybe to get into that space, because obviously I do a lot of meditation, but it's not easy for everybody to get into that meditative space. And I know obviously plants can be, you know, really helpful to help and assist just that movement of consciousness slightly. Is there anything that you would recommend for people that they could try?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is to just walk in nature, and then set an intention to find your plant ally that I was talking about. And you'd have to do a little heart opening. I was going to say a meditation, but if you're not able to meditate at this stage, you can just visualize your heart opening, and that you can speak through the heart telepathically with a plant. And then you go out and you wait to see a plant. It might just keep popping up at different places. It might be moving, but there's no wind, or you might just feel drawn to something. And then you speak through the heart to ask, are you my plant ally? Are you trying to be friends with me? And then you just sit with it, talk to it like any new friend, breathe with it consciously so that you're exchanging molecules. So you're breathing in the plant and you're giving your breath to the plant. So you become the plant and the plant becomes you because of the exchange of gas. And then you can, like, I wouldn't be a person who can do meditation easily, but my husband just discovered a person. He's just about to embark on a course where it's meditation with the eyes open. So for me, anything repetitive is in meditation. I like sweeping. I like raking in the garden. So things like that, I've got my eyes open, I can still see, but I can go inwards because of the repetitive nature of the job. So that's what works for me anyway. I've tried the candles and I've tried, you know, but it's actually making a meditation of everyday tasks, I suppose.
That's interesting to say that, actually, because I was looking into the other day, when you're rocking a baby, the somatic swaying is more, it's like a meditative state that you get into when you're like rocking a baby to sleep. And I found that so interesting because it was on a page about new mums and postpartum care and things like that, and it was saying that the rocking backwards and forth, it regulates your nervous system and helps you to get into that like meditative state. And I just found that so interesting because it's like you say, with the everyday, just doing those little things can become a meditation, can become, you know, mindful practice.
Yeah, I think the point is to be mindful of what you're doing, so then you can slip into that meditation even if you're just doing an ordinary task. Yeah, so many different routes for different people. It's incredible.
There's so much wisdom. I could talk to you for hours, Terri. You really could. But I know obviously we've only got our limited time. So I just want to thank you ever so much for coming on and sharing some of your wisdom and knowledge. And we'll be putting down on our footnotes some of your course links and your YouTube links that people can find you and they know how to kind of get in touch should they wish to go on some of your wonderful trainings, your Wise Woman trainings, and should they wish to, you know, watch your YouTube channel and get some wonderful advice and wisdom that you share. And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. And I hope at maybe at a later date you'd be happy to come on again and talk about something else, maybe, because we've loved having you on here. And you know, we absolutely adore your channel. It is one of the best YouTube channels that we watch. There's only a couple that we watch. You and Pam Gregory are the two that we watch every time you post.
TV, in the living room, like people come home from work and they'll be like, "Oh, you're watching Terri again?" And it's like, yes, we are.
Oh, that's lovely. So honoured. Oh, it's great. Thank you so much.
No,
yeah, I know.
You.
You must send me your link too, and I can share it as well for sure.
Yeah,
it's been my pleasure talking to you. It's lovely to hear about your baby and the rocking of the baby. That sounds so beautiful. I know we do rock our babies, but the way you've explained it there is just it's that inherent wisdom. It's that natural automatic response. I mean, why wouldn't you rock a baby? And it's soothing for you too, because you know it is stressful being a new mom, so you need that little bit of extra help. from the nervous system.
Oh, we've really enjoyed speaking to you, Terri. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for bearing with us with all our technical problems with the dogs in the background barking and everything else.
Sure. We use the dogs, so it's not a problem.
Real life, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's real life, and that's the main thing, isn't it? It's being real. There's no point coming on and doing things like this if you're not going to be yourself, because you want people
Absolutely. It has to be authentic.
Yeah.
It's been our pleasure. Blessings for springtime, moving into springtime. Hopefully you have some wonderful new little things popping up in your garden, and we'll be looking forward to seeing that coming up on your next podcast that you're doing. Not podcast, sorry, your YouTube. Yeah.
And many blessings on your garden too, and I hope you have a good,
thank you,
abundant crop of whatever.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Terri.
Okay, thank you. Lots of love.